Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. These are conversations with remarkable people whose passion and ideas contribute to a better world. Today, we talk about acupuncture for detox from opioids, trauma, and PTSD with Libby Stuyt, a board-certified psychiatrist in addiction and behavioral health and one of America's leading proponents of acupuncture for detox from opioids. Her knowledge of the history, practical applications, and medical science behind acupuncture is exemplified by a decades-long effort that began in the 1970s following a discovery by a Japanese neurosurgeon. Without further ado, let's meet Libby. Welcome to the show, Libby, and let's start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Peter. I'm really glad to be here. And I think this is very exciting because this is a phenomenal treatment that people can use. And I've been using it since 2000 when I first learned about it. And I've been using it in treatment programs. I've been training people to use it in treatment programs. I've worked on passing laws in Colorado and other states to expand the scope of practice for this treatment because, in most states, it's really limited to acupuncturists or physicians. And we've been able to get it expanded. And so in Colorado now we have it where pretty much any professional can learn to do this and use it in their practice.
Now, going back a little bit in history, talking about that Japanese neurosurgeon.
Well, Peter, actually, he was Chinese. He was from Hong Kong.
Oh, Chinese. Well, thanks for the correction. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So the issue here is that there's sort of a melding here of sort of ancient arts of healing and modern science. And I know a lot of us, including myself for years, even though I have a sister-in-law that has been in China and studied acupuncture as well. I'm like not a needle guy and I've never had acupuncture, and yet I keep hearing all these amazing stories about it. And when we talk about our population of people that are really at risk, we've talked about elderly people that have been taking opioids for maybe the wrong reasons because they're not as effective. There are a lot of people that really need help with detox. And rather than that rough and tumble world of more prescriptions, it's amazing that this has such potential. And yet it's so much unrealized, maybe because of bias. What are your thoughts about that stigma?
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, there is a stigma. A lot of people have questions about whether acupuncture is, helpful. Because when I really first started working on changing the law in Colorado, that was back in 2013, the biggest fight was from the physicians saying, oh, that's poo-poo, that's mumbo jumbo, that's nothing to that. And that's really sad because like this gentleman, the physician, Dr. Wen in Hong Kong, he was a neurosurgeon. And the way he discovered it was he was using an ear acupuncture point to help people calm down before having neurosurgery. And he just noticed that people that were addicted to opium or heroin did not have withdrawal when they were in the hospital. And so he then recruited people who had those problems, and he found that he could detox people off of opium or heroin using ear acupuncture. And he actually published it in a scientific article. At the same time, in New York, in the South Bronx, there was a horrible opiate epidemic. And I don't think most of us even knew that, I mean, around the country, because it was affecting mostly people just of Black and brown color. And people were dying right and left. It was awful. And methadone, came around in the 1960s. This is one of the very first places where they started using methadone maintenance at the Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx. And the people there were very suspicious of this. They really thought that this is the government trying to control them. It was just another drug that then they were on, that then the government could control how they were acting. And they heard about what Dr. Wen had done, and then they wanted to know why they couldn't have that as well. And so several of them that were working in this hospital actually got trained to use acupuncture. And together with the patients and Eastern medicine and Western medicine, they came up with these 5 points that actually do work, which is like amazing.
Now, what's your, just before we go to break, what's your initial client like that comes to you for acupuncture? How are How are they finding you, and what kind of questions do you field?
Well, initially it was when I was running an inpatient treatment program. So I ran this 90-day inpatient program in Colorado, and we were just offering it every day to the clients, and they loved it. And we found that it worked for so many things. And I actually did use it to detox people off of opiates. That was unusual because since it was an inpatient program, people had to come detoxed already. So most people had already been in detox. But with the opiate epidemic we were seeing, we had more and more people coming in full-blown opiate withdrawal. And yes, I was using buprenorphine, but I also then started using the acupuncture and found that it actually did work.
That's amazing. Well, we're going to take a short break. We come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Libby and learn how the old ways and the new ways have come together for some wonderful opportunities for health and healing. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
This is how we do at MC22. 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 Providing you entertainment when you're bored out of your mind on our channel or the Plus and online anytime.
From the Quad Squad to the Spirit Lakes team, we bring your local action straight to your screen.
This is how we do at
This is the internet that keeps the TV streaming, the meetings zooming, the playlist flowing, and the doorbell showing
Anybody home?
who's coming and going. This is the internet that powers the workout, that does the homework, that makes the lights work, that makes for light work, and makes
Don't forget to pick up Charlie.
your life work. This is the internet that keeps it all connected and has hundreds of people who ensure it's protected.
Nice try, hackers.
This is the internet voted best because it's extreme, nothing less.
30 years ago, the internet was barely a thing. But the beginning of everything. At MediaCom, we've been here. Every single step, stride, and slide along the way. And for as much as the internet has changed, we've changed. The speed and size of our network, the performance of our technology, the scale and power of our security. Investing in the growth of our communities, and keeping you ready for what's next. See you there.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about the mystery and science of acupuncture with Dr. Libby Stuyt. Libby, welcome back. Talk to us about all these wonderful things that are happening with acupuncture.
All right. Well, when I very first started, I was also skeptical. I mean, I took the training and I heard so many things from the acupuncturist who trained me that I just couldn't believe. Like, this works for what people need it for. If they need to calm down, it helps them calm down. If it gives them energy, they need that. I went, yeah, we don't have any medication that does that. But I knew that I was going to have to collect data. I was going to have to study this, and I was going to have to prove to myself that it worked. And so I started collecting tons of data. And initially, in the first couple of years that we did this, if people didn't want to have the first treatment, I told them they still had to come to the group, but they couldn't get the needles. And then at some point later, if they wanted to get the needles, they could. But I needed a group that didn't get the needles versus those who did, so I could actually compare them. And what I found was that it worked for so many things. Initially, when I was looking at the data, I was kind of concerned. I'm thinking, oh, this doesn't do anything, because I thought the things it was helping with were cravings, and using dreams and anxiety and depression. But all of those got better in both groups. So whether you got needles or not, they all got better. And then I started thinking, oh, wait a minute. This is a great treatment program. Like, this is the best treatment program in the country. So we're doing a great job. They're all getting better. And then when I started looking at the other things that we were studying, because they had this very long Likert scale that they had to fill out every day. And we found that it helped amazingly with anger. It helped people really deal with anger much better than when you didn't get needles. It helped with pain, which makes sense because acupuncture does have ability to help with pain. And it helped with sleep. That was a really big one, because most people that come into treatment can't sleep. And this is one of the things that it helps with the most. And so that's where we kind of moved on to finding other things it could help with. And it was after 9/11 that it was discovered that this really helps with trauma. And so there were, in New York, after that happened, there were all these people, like the psychiatrists were opening up clinics where people could come in and get their therapy. Nobody showed up because nobody wants to talk about a trauma after a trauma. But they opened rooms where people could come and get the ear acupuncture, and they were full. And they did numerous treatments. And when they really looked at what was most helpful, Bessel van der Kolk is a premier guy in trauma. He interviewed people, and he says that the number one thing people found the most helpful was acupuncture. And it was this ear acupuncture that people were getting. And so we found that it helps a lot with people, I think, preventing post-traumatic stress disorder. Because if you can sleep after a trauma, you're less likely to have post-traumatic stress disorder. And so we're using this in trauma situations all over. We've used it a lot in Colorado in the fires and the shootings. And so people that have had trauma from that seem to do really well in terms of not getting post-traumatic stress disorder.
One thing that comes to mind as you're talking is there also a component there where you submit to the treatment comfortably? Because I mean, we probably all have a barrier to being stuck with a needle. So psychologically, when we submit, I mean, there's a second admission of I need help. So there's a sort of as opposed to submitting to a pharmaceutical, which is still a mystery to us, and we never know what the outcome is going to be.
I agree totally. Yes, I do think there's a huge placebo effect, and there's a huge trust thing. I'm amazed how I meet somebody for the very first time. They don't know me from Adam, and I say, I'd like to put needles in your ears, and they let me do it. And the reality is there is an immediate benefit. People feel an immediate calm. And that is very reinforcing for the treatment. And, my point this whole time I've been doing is I don't care if it is just placebo. I know it's not just placebo, but I don't care if it is just that, because there's no downside to it. This is a very inexpensive treatment. It doesn't cost much at all to do this. And there are minimal side effects, and people have an immediate benefit. And that was one of the things that the acupuncturist who trained me told me, that they will have an immediate benefit. And I just couldn't believe that. But what I found was that when people are really, really ill, they actually do have an immediate benefit. So the people that I had in my treatment program who were coming off of meth, coming off of alcohol, opiates, and in full-blown withdrawal, hurting all over, anxious, they would be out like a light. I'd put the needles in, and in 10 minutes, they're snoring. And then
all right, a quick question. Yeah. Quick question for you before we go to break, because I may need a referral from you in my area. What about just help with sleeping? Let's say a person has trouble falling asleep. We don't have to come in traumatized, but if you just have a problem with sleeping, it can help?
Absolutely. Yes. I have trained many people in my hometown, and they're so adamant about wanting to use this that they volunteer to do free treatments for the community. So we have free treatments twice a month, and people come in, and we're starting to collect data because I want to know qualitatively why people keep coming back. And these are mostly people that are very healthy, don't have any problems other than stress, because it's very stressful right now. And they do report sleeping amazingly better afterwards.
That's fantastic. We're going to take a short break. I'm excited to get back and continue our conversation. See you all after the break.
Local programming at your fingertips. access to MC22 is easier than ever before and available to all MediaCom subscribers. Go to MC22.net, log into your MediaCom account, click Watch MC22, and then browse our catalog of local programming available for you. Anywhere, anytime. MC22.net/watch.
Dear future, we haven't met yet. We don't know what you look like. But at MediaCom, we think about it every day. And we'll say this: if we keep working as hard as we have the past 3 decades, if we keep adding miles of fiber, if we keep advancing our technology, if we keep raising the bar and raising each other up, we won't just be ready for you, we'll be leading the way. Sincerely, MediaCom.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Libby Stuyt about the potential and importance of acupuncture in the treatment of opioid detoxification. But we've seen now that it deals with trauma, PTSD. But Libby, you're in Colorado. Colorado is one of the states where marijuana legalization has seen a dark side, so to speak. A lot of people, just with the potency and stuff, are having trouble. Do you find people coming to you to help get off of things like marijuana? Because with these high potencies, there literally is a strong addiction component.
Absolutely. And that is something that this is another tool in the toolbox that people can have to help with that. Yes, we have seen dramatic problems with high potency THC. And I've, written about it. I talk about it all the time. And I have found that this treatment is helpful. And so in my inpatient unit, this is toward the end of when I retired from that program in 2020. But I was seeing more and more people coming in with pretty much full-blown cannabis use disorder withdrawal. And withdrawal is very uncomfortable. And I think that's why people are so difficult. And it's so difficult for them to quit, because even though they know they have all these problems, they can't quit because of the withdrawal. And we don't have any medication right now that can be used for that. And I found that this ear acupuncture protocol did help. I mean, there's studies showing that it helps with tobacco cessation. I've used it to help people quit smoking, and it did help with people with cannabis use disorder withdrawal. The other place I saw it really helpful was with people with cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. That's where they got horrible nausea and can't, keep throwing up. We would have people with that, and then the ear acupuncture helped. And I really think there's some science behind that, but nobody's been studying it. But one of the points that we use, called the sympathetic, is actually also used to treat the GI system. And so it helps calm down the GI system in terms of Chinese medicine. And so I think that it really is a very helpful, effective thing that people should start using. The problem is there's no money behind this. So it's not like a pharmaceutical. There's no drug reps telling you about it. And nobody's ever going to get rich doing this. And so it has to be kind of passed around by word of mouth. And in Colorado, we were successful in getting this law passed. So the first one was in 2013, where we were able to get licensed mental health people able to do this. And then subsequently, there have been 2 other laws changing it to now it can be any professional. And so I've actually been training people like licensed massage therapists. And so it's pretty much anybody who works in the field that can use this. And I've trained hundreds of people in Colorado, and many, many of the treatment programs have taken this on, the high-end programs and the public programs. And it's different in all states. And so it goes state by state. And there are some states that don't have that ability at all. In fact, like I think in Hawaii, only acupuncturists can do this. In California, Florida, only acupuncturists and physicians can do this. And so it really takes somebody trying to change the law. And I've worked with many people in many states working on that. Like we were successful in getting a law passed in Utah a couple of years ago, and now they can train multiple people. And
now in Iowa, I see when I go into my health club and other places, I see acupuncture promoted as a service they have. So I'm presuming in Iowa that it's accessible to people.
Well, and yes, that would be especially if you have a community acupuncturist. So that's there are two organizations that train people to do this. One is the People's Organization of Community Acupuncture, which is actually acupuncturists who believe that acupuncture should be accessible to everyone. And so they try and make it low cost. And yes, if they've been trained in this protocol, then they can actually do that in Iowa. But and I can look into that for you and send you resources for that.
I'd love it.
But I really do think that the more states that can actually start adding this, the better. Because one of the other places it's extremely helpful is in the criminal justice system. And we actually had a national conference with the NADA organization, which is the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association, in Norway in 2015, which was an international conference, and basically showing how it can be utilized in many criminal justice situations.
That's really fantastic. And I'll be looking forward to hear what happens in Iowa. I'll make sure I post it and so that other people can learn too. All right, we're going to take a short break. And we come back, we're going to ask Libby to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration for us. See you all after the break.
MediaCom Mobile. You'll love the service and the savings. Unbeatable nationwide coverage. Unlimited data. Unbelievably affordable. Switch and save 30% or more over the top 3 mobile providers. Get unlimited mobile for just $40 per line per month. Bam. No hidden fees, no contracts. Switching is cake. Keep your phone, keep your number, everything you love, except the big bill. MediaCom Mobile. Call or shop online.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we explored the treatment of detox, trauma, and PTSD with acupuncture, which holds tremendous potential for improving the quality of life for a population that has significant health challenges. Let's see what insights and inspiration Libby has to share. Libby, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to emphasize how helpful this protocol can be to everyone. And it is a really wonderful tool. You know, there's so many people that work in this field that really the only tool they have is their voice. They talk and they try and make connections with people. This is actually a nonverbal treatment that makes a connection, and it makes a really powerful connection. And because in the training, one of the things you learn is it's not just the needles, it's the intention that you have behind the needle. And that is, you know, an energetic phenomena. And many people think, oh, this energy psychology, how can that be? That's nothing to that. But it really is powerful. And so I have had many nurses that have been trained in this, that they love this because they actually have a tool, a physical tool they can use other than, you know, medication that the doctor orders. And they have an intention. And so that's one of the things the acupuncturist told me. You can't really tell people what this is going to do for them because you don't know. It's their body that's going to decide what they need. And so what I suggest people do is they ask the person, what do you want this to do for you? And if they say, well, I want it to help me sleep, I say, well, then that will be my intention. And so I am breathing that intention. I'm thinking that intention when I'm putting the needles in. And then it is amazing what happens. I had this nurse who she would breathe an intention for herself because the patient doesn't know what they want. And she goes, well, you've been very disruptive. She's thinking this in her mind. You've been very disruptive. I want you to sleep. And so she's thinking about him sleeping when she's putting the needles in. And he goes to sleep. He starts snoring. It is amazing. And so that is something that nothing else does. I mean, there are no other treatments that we can really do that are that effective in a safe, very low cost manner.
That's amazing. I mean, you're selling me. I guess more people need to hear this because the safe and the low cost, what does it hurt somebody to try something once? I mean, apparently what you're telling me is that if it works, you're going to almost know right away.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 5 weeks.
Yes. And I mean, there's more and more research coming out of this. So there are scientific studies. And one I just saw recently was looking at comparing this protocol to full body acupuncture in elderly people with low back pain. And they found that they were equally effective. And we have found this in our community setting, where people will come in, and a lot of them are older people, and I'll say, what would you like this to help you with? Well, my back is really hurting. And at the end of the session, which is usually 30 to 45 minutes of sitting there quietly with needles in their ears, they go, my back feels so much better. That's amazing.
It is amazing. And I don't know any other way to look at it. So thank you so much for sharing this amazing and remarkable side of your life that's helping people. And thank you all for joining us today and watching. Watch MediaCom MC22 and MC22.net for all of our episodes of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration with some of America's most remarkable people. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.